Welcome back, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming back as always. Thanks to all the subscriptions and comments. A lot of great comments on the last video. I know it was a smaller, mostly just update, but I'm glad that people find it entertaining regardless. So today I did get some questions about how I did the raised panels, or the dented panels on this hopper car, on the gondola rather. And I do want to show how I did that. Unfortunately, the foil that I used, I actually used the, it was a Dove Easter Bunny, and it came in a real thick metal foil package. And I basically just took the foil, rolled it flat with a dowel that I had on the workbench, and I got it as flat as I could. And really, if it's not completely flat, it doesn't matter. You're looking for a dented look anyway. But once I got it flat, I cut it to size to fit on each of the panel sections on the gondola itself. And then I went ahead and just creased them, dented them, put cuts in them. You know, trying to give it that beat up gondola look. And I think it worked in some areas not so much. But then once I had them dented, I went ahead and glued them on using some, well, it's the Gorilla Glue, or CA. You know, you're going to need like a super glue because you're going metal to plastic. Excuse me. And then, so then once they were adhered on, I gave it a primer coat. I would suggest going maybe even possibly with a Rust-Oleum, and this would be a great project for sea salt weathering. So I guess I would go, if I was to do it again, which I might repaint this car. I'm not real thrilled with how the sophisticated finishes is turning out on this car. So what I would probably do is go with a gray undercoat, even like a Rust-Oleum primer. If you get a little bit of texture on here, which you're going to get with the spray paint because it's going to be not as fine a mist as if you were using your airbrush, but it'll adhere to the foil really well. And then I would probably come up with an undercoat of whatever color you want. Try the sea salt weathering on this. That's actually what Tom Mann in his weathering book showed, of a gondola and some coiled hopper car, steel coil cars. That's the word I'm looking for. So, and then you could do some sea salt weathering on here. Come back with another coat of paint, and then remove the salt, and I think this would be a pretty good project. I will attempt this if I can find some more foil that'll work. Aluminum foil is a little bit too thin. Now I know you can get different grades of aluminum foil. You can also get really thin sheets of brass. And that's actually how I found out about this. It was on a forum. I wish I could give credit to the person who did it. And I think it was on Train Orders, possibly when the Atlas forums were still around. Someone had done an amazing job with a boxcar, and he revealed the secret to be that he had actually glued panels on like this to give the bulges, which is another project that I've wanted to do. Unfortunately, I don't have any more of this foil, so I got to just find some more. Once I do, I'll do a quick how-to on the actual process, but at least you know that's what I did for this one. So that's that. I thought for today, though, I'd start working some more on the diorama mini scene, if you will. Nothing going to be real innovative here. The same techniques I've used for the rest of the layout, but it'll just be in this little, you know, display area, display case eventually. So the other thing, looking to users out there, is where to get plexiglass. Does anyone know? Because ultimately, when I'm done with this, I would love to be able to put a plexiglass, you know, just a few inches tall, but the whole width and everything. So I need something cut to dimensions, and also, and I can probably Google and YouTube this, but just to the proper way to fuse plexiglass together. If you can just use glue, or I've never done it. So I would love any advice from anybody out there who has done it, because you know, once you've got this sitting, I don't want it to be covered in dust, and I really don't want to do the drop cloths like I do on the layout, because it'll be more of, I hope to either have it in my office at work, or you know, upstairs, you know, just as a showpiece on a shelf somewhere. My wife doesn't know that yet, but I'll sneak it onto a shelf somewhere, and hopefully she won't notice. So that's my question to you for the week, is if anybody's really good with plexiglass or knows of a place that'll cut it and size it to shape, I'd appreciate a heads up on that one. So we'll switch over to the workbench and get started. Okay, so one of the things that was on the video that I showed, well, that I intended on showing and then got deleted, was how I went ahead and glued these together. This is just 2 pieces of 1-inch extruded pink styrofoam. Color obviously doesn't matter, it's just what happens to be available in Wisconsin area. So what I thought I'd do is I have, this is Woodland Scenic's foam roadbed. So I'm going to go ahead and just for a good contour. Now, I could probably shape this to the contour that I want, but this will just give me a good idea of my right-of-way and what I want to go with. And then I'm going to come back and I can contour this. It's going to be pretty simple, nothing real fancy with the scenery. But the one thing I do use is, so you want to use, and I touched on this in the video that got deleted, liquid nails for projects and foam board. This doesn't, it's a easy water cleanup, so it's obviously water based, no solvents in it, and so then that way you know that it's safe for the foam. So I'm going to go ahead and we will double check the measurements on this guy here. 25 inches. Alright, so I'll keep this as the top side, and I do kind of want to just, I know it's probably going to be maybe a little bit drab to have the track just run down the center, but I thought that way I can kind of maybe even do a little bit of just a contour on both sides. So the overall dimensions, 5 inches, so 2 inches down the center, or 2.5 rather. So I'm just going to use a piece of foam here to smooth this out a bit and kind of flatten it out. Obviously I'm not going to be running trains on this, so I don't have to worry about it being totally flat, but since it is going to be a display, I would like it to at least look nice. And then just scrape off the excess onto the bottom of the foam itself. Now really I'm most concerned with making sure that the edges stay down. Now I know some people like to use rollers for this, just like a wallpaper roller, and you can definitely do that, or if you've got a thing of sea salt, that works too. Just to roll it out, flatten it out a little bit. get the glue to the edges is where you want it, so the it sticks down. In this case, if it's overhanging the edge a little bit, but that's okay. No big deal there. I can always trim it later. Let's just get an idea here how good we are. Inch and a half, inch and a half, inch and a half, inch and a half. Good enough for the girls' eye date. Okay, so now this is down. Normally I would probably wait to lay the track down, but since this is just a straight piece, it probably won't be too big a deal to go ahead and put the track down right away. These are just some old pieces of track that I had left over from when I built the layout. I'm going to go ahead and once I've got the track in place, I'll come back and with some spare ties that I have, put them in place. Get my rail nippers out here. So just going ahead and cutting them. I don't know if you used the Xuron, I think that's how you pronounce it, Xuron rail nippers. These are great. Makes short work of cutting track, that is for sure. So the key to them is to put the flat edge towards the finished track, the track that you're going to use, because it will squish the other side and leave you with kind of an ugly surface. These are getting a little old, probably time for a new pair, but for now they're getting the job done. Alright, track is trimmed. This was used on a previous layout, so it's got some caulk left over on it, so I just want to trim that off. Just a bead of caulk down the center here. Nothing too heavy. I don't want it to bubble up too much between the rails. And like the nothing fancy there. So what I like to do when I'm laying track down is I've just got these old panel nails, so a lot of times I'll just come in and put a piece, put one in just to put some pressure on them. It sticks into the foam, and much like working with cork, that is the nice thing about the foam, is that they hold the nails well, so it'll hold it in place. So I'll just put these every once in a while, and kind of just holds the track to the glue. But then they're easily removed once the glue dries. So I have a container of ties that I've collected over the years of cut and flex track. You always have some extra bits and pieces, and so what I'll do is you just come in with your nippers, or if you've got I got these new sprue cutters, and you can come in and these get nice and close. You can just trim off any of the cast-in tie plates, things like that, spikes and stuff, and you just file them down a little bit. And then since I've got the glue in here, I can just come in underneath, slide them into place, probably one more in here. This one's already filed down, excellent. Makes it easier. There, those will hide the joint there a little bit. Okay, so that's that. One thing I wanted to share, now I don't know if this is the best technique or not. So one thing I wanted to share, I don't know if this is the best technique or not, but when you've got extra caulk left over in your tubes, a lot of times you throw a nail down, or some of them come with caps. Unfortunately, this one didn't. And I know sometimes even a screw or something. What I find is that leaves a little air gap, and then you get the glue or the caulk ends up solidifying in the tube here. So what I do is I actually just take my hot glue gun and kind of just clean the tip off here a little bit, and then I don't put too much inside of it, but just keep working the outside. And it does require you to plug your hot glue gun in before you start working or after you start working. But then what happens is that I found that this creates a nice seal to the tube of the caulk, almost resealing it as if it was from the factory. And then what I have, I don't get that solid, the dried chunk in here, and I don't have to go fishing it out with the caulk gun or deal with it not coming out the next time I use it. And so this dries, and then you can easily remove it later on with a pair of needle nose pliers, or even sometimes an X-Acto blade. You just flick it off. The hot glue doesn't seem to stick real well to the material that the nozzle is made out of, so it seems to work pretty well. So if that helps anybody else, it seems to work for me. So okay, I might be rushing things just a little bit, but this adhesive does dry pretty quickly, and the track isn't necessarily in place yet, real secure, but the foam has definitely secured in place. So like I did on previous projects on the layout, I'm just going to come back with the foam rasp and remove some of this material, try and get a good contour going, and then I'll come back with some of the brown latex that I use as my undercoat, and get a base layer of scenery going. Alright, I'm going to shut the camera off here and bring out the shop vac. No sense recording that. Okay, shop vac actually did a really nice job pulling up all the foam out of the glue. So apparently the glue was dry enough that it didn't stick. So what I always do after I contour my scenery is I come back with, and for those of you familiar with paint, I bought this probably 20 some years ago at least. I used to work for Sears, and at the time I was building an N-scale layout, and I bought a quart of paint, and it's lasted me this long. Unfortunately, it's starting to run out though, so I might have to actually go and buy another coat of this, or another quart of this. Maybe it'll last me another 20 years. We'll see. So just your basic latex paint. It's enough for a basic brown color on the base scenery. Nothing special. It's all going to get covered up eventually anyway, so, but I like to just fill in all the nooks and crannies that you get from contouring it. Okay, so I got a base layer of the paint on there, so I'm just going to come back with a light dusting of just some green turf, just to, just give it a little bit of foam in here. Alright, so that's that. I think I'm going to let this dry. We'll time lapse it and we'll pick it up once all this is dried, and we can kind of continue on with the next steps. Okay, so time lapse. Everything's dried. You can see the track is securely in place. and the foam is also in place. The initial coat of paint is dry, and most of the foam is sticking. It was just a base coat just to get some down. So the first thing I thought I'd do after, now that we've got this done, is just to weather the rails a little bit. And one thing I picked up was these Floquil enamel paint markers. And I happened to pick up this set that comes with rail brown, rail tie brown, and rust. And I thought I'd go with this. I'm going to do the rails, the sides of the rails with these, and then I have a wash that I've been using for my trucks and stuff like that. I thought I'd use that on the ties themselves. I don't want to brush that on. I think it would take too long to try and use the pens for that. So I wanted to do that before I put the ballast down, and then maybe after the ballast is down I'll come back and use some more of this just for grime and stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and shake. And you're supposed to be able to just come in and, yeah, I guess it works pretty well actually. Okay, now I think I'll grab a paintbrush, stir this up. So use a little bit larger of a brush, get some paint on there. I think that's some decent weathering for now. We can always come back and add a little bit more after the ballast is in, dirty the ballast up and stuff like that. So I think that'll be the next step. We'll get some ballast on the track. I'm gonna go clean the brush and we'll be back. Okay, I have some medium ballast buff. I think I used this on a previous layout and I haven't really had a use for it. It's kind of a limestoney color, you know, buff, whatever buff is supposed to be. I thought I'd use that on this, a little bit different than what I use on the layout otherwise. I'm going to try a different technique this time. Normally I use a paintbrush, but I've seen and heard of people using a foam brush, and I think that it might not pick up the granules as much. So I'm going to give this a shot and see how it works. Okay, so ballasting is done, and while the ballast was being glued in place, the glue started to run down the side here, so I just went ahead and put in a little extra ground foam to give it some extra color. I put some of this brown in, and then put a little bit more green in as well. So that is that part. Okay, well, I think that's it for this week. I want to get a video out this week, so I'm going to cut this one a little short, make it a two-part series. Not that this really requires it. It's a pretty simple project, but unfortunately with my time constraint, I know that's becoming a broken record, but figure I'll call it good for now, post a video, and then follow up with hopefully the completion of this little diorama. I'm going to put some static grass in to give it a little more texture. I was thinking maybe some old ties. You know, I've got some scrap ties from when I make the my fast track switches. So I'll just dye those, stain them rather, put those in here, make it look like there's some track work in the area. You know, some other stuff, some shrubs and all that kind of stuff. So looking forward to using this as a bit of a photographic centerpiece, if you will, and with the sun shining and things being nice out, I think it'd be fun to take it outside, get some raster shots of my locos and rolling stock and stuff like that. So yeah, that'll be the plan for next week, I guess. So Thanks as always for the subscriptions. Please keep the comments coming, either about the videos, questions about things I'm doing, whatever else you guys notice. I appreciate all of them, and we'll get back to you as quickly as I can. I think that's it for this week. We'll see you next video.